Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having the possibility to follow this meeting today. That is the final event of a very complex project, the Erasmus Plus HERMES Project. My name is Silvia D'Albenzio, project manager of this initiative. Before starting the presentation of our project and also providing you details concerning the outcomes achieved, allow me to pass the floor to Dr. Nicola Ferri, head of the aquatic and terrestrial ecosystem here at Istituto Zooprofilattico Sperimentale dell'Abruzzo e del Molise. That is the leading organization of the HERMES consortium. Nicola, please, the floor is yours.
First of all, I want to say that my general director, Nicola Ferri, is not with us, but I bring you the greetings because my director is really involved in this topic, and every time he wants to be informed about what happened. So today, I would like to keep the occasion just to spend a few words just to introduce not me, but my institute, because for us, as I told you, is a very important moment, this one, just to participate with the project. As I told you, my institute is involved in, first of all, in animal health and welfare. This is historically our first field of interest. And then, as you know, my department is aquatic and terrestrial ecosystem. We are involved in health and environment. Our first kind of services that we provide to our minister are information systems and animal identification and registration. This topic was very important for us in the past because, for example, talking about identification and registration, it was the way to get in touch with a lot of countries in Africa and South America, because you know that identification in animal is the first topic to face when you want to try to collaborate. And then another very important field is one of food safety, and then epidemiology and risk assessment, and training and knowledge management. How is our organization in the country? We are under the direct control of the Minister of Health. As you can see here, it's very, very complicated scheme, but it's not. It's very easy. You can see that we are direct collaboration with our region, Abruzzo and Molise region, and then we are strong report with the Italian Istituto Superiore di Sanità. This is just the frame of collaboration. As I told you, we are 10 zooprophylactic institutes in Italy. We are able to cover all the country, and you can see here the map of Italy, and then on the right side, the territory of Abruzzo and Molise region, where you can see a lot of different sites. There are 7 of them, just to have a capillary presence in all the territory. As I told you, we were built in 1941, and we started with such a kind of very old building. But the interesting thing for me is that just on the back of the first building, we built the first stables. You can see in this picture, and the center of the picture, a small building. It was the first veterinary school in Teramo. On the right-hand side, there was the first stable for bulls. We started preparing semen for artificial insemination in cattle. And then you can see the place where we were used to grow rabbits, guinea pigs, rats, and mouses. Just was the first building we realized. Then a few years later, we prepared the first safety unit, where inside we had the 4 rooms to host laboratory animals. It was a very innovative realization that is still working today. But you know, this building was just in the center of the city, and it was not possible to have anyone inside. So just a few years later, we prepared another construction in the field of 17th, where we were able to host laboratory animals and large animals. And this is today. Today is the last realization. We have a very huge property, and we built several innovative stables for large animals, small ruminants and large animals. And today we are going to build inside a unit for laboratory animals too. Our activity and history about the laboratory animal science. We were involved in higher education and training. Usually we develop vaccines, and then we're involved in the test of safety of drugs, substances or products. We work a lot for the preservation of the species and work on bacterialization, exotic and endemic animal diseases. As you can imagine, animal welfare is for us very important, and we reserve a lot of human resources in this topic. Abruzzi region is called the green region because we have a lot of natural parks in our territory. That's why the last line is dedicated to the protection of the natural environment in the interest of health and the welfare of human beings and animals. What about our path in LAS? We got the accreditation for FELASA, and we organized our first course in June 2019. This was very important for us, and I think it's the very starting point for our very strong involvement in the topic. Starting from 2015, we never stopped organizing year by year courses on LAS training. 2015, we have a 3-day theoretical course with more than 17 participants. In the year 2016, there were 2 6-day theoretical courses with 76 participants. And so you can see that we have each year, a very important course. You can see in 2018, we started with HERMES. It was awarded, HERMES Project. And then 2019 and 2020, we had all the training and the events linked to HERMES Project. What was the particular aspect of our courses? We just try to put it together, the theoretical aspect and the practical aspect. Is very impaired, but we noted that our participants appreciate very much this kind of organization. This is just to give you a very short introduction to present my institute, and I think that it will be helpful to understand why we did some choices, why we were involved in the last training and so on, and why we are going to get involved more in large animal training too, because as I told you, it's a very important tool for us. Thank you very much.
Introductory presentation regarding European legislative framework and the ethical perspective in laboratory animal science education and training that very kindly will be given by the scientific coordinator of this project, Dr. Rodolfo Lorenzini. Dr. Lorenzini is director of the National Center for Animal Experimentation and Welfare of the Higher Institute of Health, Istituto Superiore di Sanità. She is also president of the National Committee for the Protection of Animals Used for Scientific Purposes and president of the Italian Society of the Horse and Environmental, scientific director, as I said, of the HERMES Project. Dr. Lorenzini, if everything is working correctly, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. The directive regulates the complicated matter of animal relationship in the sector of the use of animals for scientific purposes. And the crudest and most violent part, at least according to a part of public opinion, of this relation. So the problem of managing this aspect, these topics, is very important. And the directive tried to be an ambitious compromise between these three main factors: animals, society, and the use of animal research. And the Commission has individuated strong elements and tools to raise the quality level of users. In the main part of this activity, the tools which has been identified were the transposition into the member states' legislation, and using the activity of working groups of specialists and experts in the various topics related to harmonization of the activity of the directive. And in particular, the Commission, an expert working group to develop a common education and training framework for Europe to fulfill the requirements under Articles 23 and 24, which manages the of these topics. So how to provide a good education, training, competence to all the people, all the figures involved in animal experimentation. And in this field, as you know, considering that the directive started 10 years ago, the biggest problem is harmonization, depending by different cultures, education, the political, social situations. If we look at the criteria elaborated by the various working groups, we found obviously the activity of education and training framework, but we see a lot of principles which has some relevant ethical aspects. For example, in the first line, you see these principles has been received in some legislation, including ethical review in the activity of animal welfare body that you know very well. This is, for example, the cases of United Kingdom. Now it's not part of European Community, but is inserted the ethical review considering this principle. And have you see also the lexical terms used: guidance and principles, guidance, and are the meaning of these terms means that we have to teach, we have to develop the culture and the principles of managing, of using animal in scientific activity. Practically, it's a very big ethic operation to modify the culture and ethics of using animals for scientific purposes. We have to remember that the statement of the preliminary statement of the directive is to change completely the approach to development of research in the sector of biomedical, especially change and transferring the activity from animals to in vitro methods. So education and training is a ring of conjunction between this cross from the actual situation to the next situation. And this process very probably will be along for many years, I think. Moreover, the education and training framework has also the aim to give the opportunity to people involved in animal research to transfer his activity from a country to another. That is not a little problem, because in many countries today the situation is that when you be inserted in a new project, practically you have to receive another evaluation. So very probably the real problem is recognize the competence and recognize also the project between countries. So the problem is not only technical or political, but is a real problem. Today, not applied. Some words on competence. The competence must be created in all persons involved in the use, care, breeding, and use, and assists the free movement of personnel. We have here some statements very important of the job of the working group about competence. Training alone does not deliver competence. Competence should be subject to review, because you can change your activity during the year and also change method of using animals. And it is therefore not desirable to specify any time limits for teaching or supervision periods. And so now we will see that the objective of the initial training and the initial education is the attainment of basic knowledge and the understanding of the concept to arrive to a deeper understanding of all the problems linked with the animal use in scientific activity. And here we have the statement of Article 3 that adequately educated and trained before they perform in the following function, and the function are the researcher and so on. Especially this problem of a preliminary evaluation is relevant when performing one of the functions related with causing pain, suffering, distress, or lasting harm. This is really a very strong ethical principle. And the relevant training modules should be completed prior to working under supervision. Here we have the Annex 5th list of elements referred to in Article 23, practically of a basic education and continuous training and evaluation of competence. I underlined in with red color practically all the topics which have ethical relationship, especially two, where is explicitated ethics in relation to human-animal relations and intrinsic value of life, and so. But practically, the articles and the topics recall the ontology of the people using animals. And the ontology means ethics and means need to acquire an adequate education and adequate competence in this matter, especially in recognition of species-specific distress, pain, and suffering, and most common laboratory species. And we know that the individual culture of the people is very important. Anesthesia, pain relieving methods and killing, use of humane endpoints, requirements of replacement, reduction and refinement, design of procedures and projects where appropriate, are topics related to which require an ethics competence. In fact, if we see, this is not the last, but one of the practically the last slide. If we see the scheme of elaborated by working group, we can observe the acquisition of knowledge is the first step, and then you have to acquire practice experience with a tutor, and to develop a deeper learning and critical thinking. So means auto consciousness to arrive to the competence. And these processes are all linked, are continuous and change during the time and need to be reviewed. I think that today we are starting, today, I mean, since 2010 to now, 10 years, and we are in the first step of the long way to arrive to competence, and how in Europe to assess competence. I don't know how long will be this period, because it's depending by a lot of factors and a lot of also activities that we need to put on and this activity of the HERMES project surely will give a strong impulse to this situation. I want here also to wish to greet and thank the colleagues with whom we have collaborated in this very fast, and the exchange of opinions and dialectic that we have established has greatly enriched me on a human and professional level. Thank you all.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Lorenzini, for this presentation, providing the audience with the, let me say, cultural background that addressed the work we have implemented together during the last 3-year period. Allow me to present our project to this very relevant group of participants. Allow me to say that the audience is today composed by a very relevant representative of the scientific community working in laboratory animal science. And what I can say is that this can be considered not a final event, but the very beginning of a multi-level collaboration with the relevant stakeholders in the European scenario. The preamble to introduce our initiatives is really represented by the Directive 2010/63, establishing that member states should ensure through authorization or by other means, that staff are adequately educated, trained, and competent. 3 keywords inspiring and addressing very clearly the mandate of all the policymakers and the relevant stakeholders. The minimum requirements regarding higher education or training for the acquisition, maintenance, and improvement of vocational skills in laboratory animal science education and training, since we are in the framework of a directive, are at discretion of the EU member states. And this determines that different regulatory scenarios can be put in place by them. And as a consequence, the fragmentation between the different scenarios may obstacle the mutual recognition of training competencies at EU level, as concerns the personnel involved at various levels in the different functions foreseen by the directive. In light of this general consideration, we, as Istituto Zooprofilattico Sperimentale dell'Abruzzo e del Molise, decided to think about the future, involving relevant organizations in the EU, representing some of the key parties working in laboratory animal science, to try to design a model to approach the problem and try to propose a solution, a possible solution. Here you can see listed all the members of the HERMES Consortium: Istituto Superiore di Sanità, Italy; the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences; Veterinary Continuous Education in Europe, VETC; the Hellenic Agricultural Organization Demeter, Greece; Universidad de Murcia in Spain; and Dudanet in Italy. Thanks to their positive welcome of our invitation to this challenging project, we designed a proposal, a tender, under the KA2 measure of the Erasmus Plus initiative, that is the cooperation for innovation and exchange of good practices. And as you can see, KA 202, Strategic Partnership for Veterinary Education and Training, was the measure of the HERMES project. It was the 2017 call. We started our activities in November 2017, and we are going to conclude the project activities by the end of this year. We received an extension of the duration because of the COVID-19 pandemic emergency having I can say not minor effect on some of the project activities. And as you can see, the budget is around 450,000 euros. What is the HERMES scope in relation to the problem that I just presented to you? To set a scheme for promoting quality in continuing education and training, the so-called CBET, in laboratory animal science, and contributing to the harmonization of the approach at EU level for the free circulation or movement, of professionals in Europe. How to do this? Our approach foresees a sort of definition, first of all, research of common aspects to design standards, establish requisites, and also principles, addressing the mutual recognition of qualifications from a country to another one, and support then the free circulation of professionals in the EU. In order to achieve such ambitious goals, we have designed a multi-level approach made of 5 intellectual outputs, speaking the Erasmus Plus language. We have first of all designed as intellectual output 1 the so-called laboratory animal science education and training quality standard. The second intellectual output is a quality manual related to such a standard. As intellectual output 3, we have produced, I can say it's the right noun, a self-assessment tool for LAS, education and training providers, and a digital certificate generator. For more details will be provided to you during the day, but the scope of such a web platform is to give uniformity, standardize the content of the final certification at the end of a training path. And all them have been applied for testing to an e-learning training course ad hoc designed and produced under the umbrella of this project. As you can see, I put on this screen 2 evocative concepts through the image, recalling all the aspects of creativity. You cannot imagine how hard it was for us to think about something from scratch, start talking within the consortium the same language, because some concept seems to be the same, but if you try to explore them deeply in the perception and in the mind of your colleagues, you can see different angles and different interpretations. So we made a very strong effort at the very beginning of the project to create a common ground to start working on towards the same direction. In my presentation, since the agenda of today gives space to all the actors, all the consortium partners and experts who personally contributed to the implementation of the different intellectual output, I would like to focus my contribution to the agenda, presenting you the cornerstone of this project, that is the quality standard, the LAS E&T quality standard. I'd like to provide you some relevant information on it, starting from the content, the introductive preamble of this document. I would also tell you that each word, line by line, has been deeply conceived by the consortium in order to communicate to the potential users what we had in mind. So it's very important to underline, first of all, that the acknowledgement of the ethical purposes of the Directive 63 represents the the cornerstone of this standard regarding laboratory animal science education and training to ensure the protection of animals and the quality of science. This standard takes into account the need of and the cultural differences between the member states of the European Union, while recognizing the goals of the directive. This approach acknowledges the great variety of education and vocational training traditions and methods in member states, and promotes necessary transparency and common understanding and trust. This standard takes into consideration the recommendation of the European Parliament on the establishment of a European quality assurance reference framework for vocational education and training. What we intend to stress is the fact that this can be considered a possible way to recognize differences, but addressing them towards minimum requirement, common requirements, which can guarantee quality of education and training services delivered by the education and training provider working in these fields. We consider this as a voluntary scheme, and it is at disposal of the system. The standard aims to facilitate the mutual recognition and implementation of the internationally established principles, the 3R principles, and intends to facilitate the functions and legal duties of the animal welfare body that you very well know as clear and well-defined responsibilities regarding the certification of the competencies. And when I say this, I look at Nicola Ferri, who is president of our animal welfare body. The standard also promotes modern teaching methods, example e-learning, to encourage the development of deeper learning and critical thinking, according to the expert working group, the working document on development of common education and training framework to fulfill the requirements under the directive. That I can say represents for us the Bible. The legislative framework, international standards, and other relevant documents that we use to design, to draft the quality standard are listed in this page. And as you can see, together with the directive and the working group document, we considered crucial the EFQM excellence model, as well as the ISO 9001-2015 quality management system. The process to produce such an intellectual output was very complex and made of some crucial steps: context analysis, development, and validation. We made a first internal investigation. Then we organized a focus group for knowledge elicitation. 8 people closed in a room, started from a white page drafting such an original tool. Then we arranged an online survey to achieve consensus at a consortium level again. It was the effect of the application of the Delphi method to drive a group of experts towards consensus. And then we submitted this tool together with all the other intellectual outputs to a peer review process assigned to a group of experts ad hoc selected. So the skeleton of the final output is described in this picture. We have an introduction very close to the page that I just presented you. The scope, the legislative framework, the terms and definition, the context drivers, very crucial for us to address our job, the principles and fundamental concepts, and in detail, the LAS education and training quality standard criteria. As I said, this tool was inspired by the EFQM excellence model and the ISO standard 9001-2015. So the quality standard criteria are organized in main sections: leadership, strategy, human resources, partnership, process, products, and services. Results, customer results, people results, and society results. This is very important because we stressed all the possible direct and indirect impact of LAS education and training services. This tool is at disposal of all the education and training provider who intends to approach the HERMES outcomes on a voluntary basis and without any cost, of course, because we are in the framework of a European program. And it's very important for you to know that the HERMES project is going to be concluded, but just formally, because our institute will continue feed the website where all the intellectual outputs will be published. We will support further implementation of the tools if some relevant organizations or member countries or other associations intend to give value to them and cooperate with us. They are open tools at the disposal of the scientific community. We have other intellectual outputs that, as I said, my colleagues are going to present you. So thank you very much for your attention.